Firing. He's going for Landry down by the end zone. A tumbling catch for a touchdown. He's to the 30, 20, 10, 5, touchdown. Is this how it feels to win?
Welcome back, Survivors, episode 12, season 4. This is Surviving the Season, live from the Baywater Studios in Tampa, Florida. I'm Adam. Greg, what up?
Yo, how you been?
Good.
Been a couple
good.
weeks.
It has
couple
been.
weeks.
Yeah, a couple weeks. We've got some OTAs down now. The mandatory portion just started this week. They will meet Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday before taking a break until late July when training camp will start. That being said, while there might not be a ton going on, there is a ton of news to cover. Let's start with what could be seen as probably the Browns' first L. Gerald McCoy decided to go to Carolina. Give me some thoughts.
Well, I mean, the biggest problem with the Gerald McCoy thing would have been the amount of money that you're going to have to pay him. But I think that's up in the air, is it not? Did Carolina only paid him $10 million a year or $11 million?
$8 million with likely to be earned.
Yeah, likely to be earned salary, bonuses or whatever. Yeah, so that's not a very expensive contract. So I was thinking, Gerald McCoy is probably going to get around $12 million. I believe that's what Sheldon Richardson got. The odd thing was that it was only a 1-year deal, and it was for 10, could be $11 million there. Definitely seemed within the price range of the Browns. I would be surprised. The Browns don't have endless amounts of money anymore. I mean, we've spent a lot of money, but there's still like $30 million under the cap.
Yeah, cap-wise, they're in pretty good shape.
Yeah, so you would have definitely helped out the defense. Bruce Arians said about Gerald McCoy that he isn't the same disruptor as what he used to be, and he's right. Like, if you look at his career, last year was the lowest amount of pressures that he had since his second year in the league when he was injured that year. So his production was down this past year. Doesn't mean that he doesn't have anything left. So I think he still had a couple years. He's still got a couple years left in him to still be able to produce. But him not coming here, before we had Sheldon Richardson, this is a guy I would have been shooting for. After we get Sheldon Richardson, the need for Gerald McCoy is not as we just don't need him as bad. The problem is we're still really light at that position. We're really light at interior defensive tackle when it comes to after the first two. After Ogunjobi, after Sheldon Richardson, it's a steep decline there.
And they didn't draft anybody out of this class also either. So yeah. I thought McCoy could come in. He wouldn't have to play, a trillion snaps. It would free up Sheldon Richardson also to play probably a few less snaps, keep those guys fresh, keep them attacking all game, and Ogunjobi on top of it as well could just play less and maybe be more efficient.
Definitely could have been like a three-headed monster there. Richardson brought it up today in his presser where he said big part of the reason why he's not here is probably because I am here. The lack of snaps that maybe McCoy was going to see. I'm not sure if that was a major flaw. Now, McCoy said the reason why he chose Carolina was to stay close to his family. Actually, I'm not even sure if he said that. That was what was reported. Being in Tampa last year, he stays in the South. He's not going all the way to Baltimore or Cleveland. Keeps him a little bit closer to the family. So that makes sense for a guy that's on the end of his career. It's not, he's made plenty of money. Not that money doesn't matter, but it's, family's a high priority for the guy too.
Sure. I'm just, I guess with Kitchens coming out very publicly in the media and talking about him.
I know you didn't like that.
Him, and then Baker also publicly saying, I hope he comes here. I don't feel as weird about it with Baker as I do a coach, kind of. I don't know. I would keep some of this stuff out of the media, but this is definitely a different Browns organization than we're used to, and I got to get used to it, I guess. Maybe we all do.
Yeah, I mean, I'm fine. I've always been fine with these guys saying whatever they want. I don't lose my shit nearly as much as like the Cleveland media does over every single spoken word. To me, you're right in the fact that Freddie's saying like, "Hey, yeah, we really want him," and when he signs here. When you look back at that comment, because Freddie was acting like the deal was done, there could be some negative thoughts, brought up to that. But Freddie's also said, if you're not here, then you don't matter. If you're not with us, you're against us. So he brought that up as well. And the next time he was in front, like, hey, he's not on our team, so we're moving ahead with the guys that we got, and we're happy with that. So. I just think that's sort of Freddie's personality. He's just going to tell you what he thinks, right?
Yeah, they actually dug themselves out of it where it didn't seem as awkward as if they. When I was first thinking, like, man, if this guy decides not to come here, it feels like we're taking a big loss because they're so public about wanting him. And then after he decided not to come here, they actually made the right comments and said we wish him all the best and thanks for checking us out. So it was an interesting.
What do you think the Browns' offer was?
I don't know, but it had to be 8 to 10, right? I mean, I would assume that they would have offered in that range.
It couldn't be lower than 8, right? I mean, if you brought a guy all the way in and then you're going to offer him less than 8, a guy of his stature, he's going to laugh at you. He's going to be like, "Why are you wasting my time?"
Yeah. Yeah, I'm sure they knew what the market was. The agent could have even floated Carolina's deal if he really wanted to go to Cleveland. They could have sort of used that. But
at the end of the day, it doesn't seem to be about money, though.
No, I don't think it's about money. Yeah, I'm pretty sure he's picking Carolina. A couple people said, well, he gets to play Tampa twice. Maybe that could be something. I don't know. I don't know if that factors in the way we like to make a story out of some of those things. It might just be, I'll just work in Carolina. It's a couple hours away from, where he resides. So.
Right. I mean, it's a bummer from a team aspect because of the fact that we still need to fill that position. I don't know if I haven't looked since then to see if there's any names out there still, but I feel like that's still the one position that needs to be addressed.
Yeah, definitely. We haven't had much. Do you have anything else on McCoy before we?
No, we can move on.
We did have one roster move today. Left tackle Desmond Harrison has been cut.
This is the other position that we could address.
Yes. He apparently was either late or didn't show up yesterday for the first day of mandatories. Freddie Kitchen said he missed a flight, I believe. And he did not elaborate on that. And then today, they sent him walking. He's sort of been rumored to be a little bit of, not attending team meetings and just not being quite, a hard worker. He's an undrafted free agent. We tried him last year. It didn't work. I don't think we've lost anything here by moving on. He would have been a stretch to make the team anyway, probably.
Yeah, it was definitely going to be a stretch to make the team with the signing of Kendall Lamb from the Houston Texans. That was most likely going to be your swing tackle if he doesn't end up beating out Chris Hubbard or Greg Robinson for a starting gig. The thing is with Desmond Harrison, he was sort of forced into a tough position. I mean, this is an undrafted guy. He didn't even practice with the first team, right? Up until all through the preseason, up until like a week before the games or the 2 weeks prior to the opening game. And it was the state-run media, CBD, that was announcing, hey, I think the Browns have found their left tackle of the future, the incumbent to the great Joe Thomas. And it is he, Desmond Harrison, who will be stepping in and protecting Baker's blind side for the next 12 years. Well, maybe 9 months. We went with 9. We got nine solid months out of him. I feel bad for the kid, but because he was thrown into and we talked about this with I think when Costco was on last about how sometimes the teams put the players in bad positions, right? They put you in a position where you're probably not ready for that role. And clearly, Desmond Harrison, going all the way back to that first preseason game that he played, where he was blowing assignments in the preseason game, there was one play where he got annihilated and Baker was destroyed. He got thrown right back into Baker Mayfield. Baker actually threw a pick on that pass in the Detroit game. Do you recall that? I believe that was the game.
Yeah.
Maybe, you know what? Maybe that was the second. All right, I have a foggy memory but it was one of those games, the second to the last game of the preseason, or the last game of the preseason, where he got destroyed, and you saw him multiple times on tape where he is running a different play than what the team was. And, the team was going, all right, we're going to get the kinks worked out. This is going to be fine. This guy gives us the best chance to win, saying all the right things. They told the state-run media to say the same. It was pushed upon the fans. We got excited about it. Okay, maybe we got something here. Maybe we got a steal. But you saw it numerous times in those first, couple games where, again, blowing assignments, just not being able to handle the strength. Great feet, man. Unbelievable athleticism from Harrison. Just could not handle the strength. And then, it's been coming out that the guy has, which he's always had this issue of off the field issues of maybe not being the hardest worker, or maybe not showing up for all the team activities on time, that sort of thing. And then the last straw is missing a flight to Cleveland, and you come in late, and hey, we got enough stars, enough divas, what some of the people in the media to worry about. We can't worry about the guy who might be the 53rd person on our roster. It's time to cut it off here and let you go. And hopefully he lands somewhere and he makes something out of his career.
Yep. All the best. There could be, obviously, all speculation. Trent Williams, the left tackle in Washington, has notified the team that he will not play there. He said they had handled a medical situation poorly. He's not happy. This guy is 30 years old. He's really good.
Really good. I think he's 31.
Okay.
But maybe I'm wrong. Maybe he's going to be 31 by the time the season starts. I thought when I looked it up.
Okay. He's due P5 salary, $11 million this year, $12.5 million next. If they want out, is this somebody the Browns should attack?
I would. Now, he's had an injury history. If he wants out and they're willing to, maybe they would be willing to give him up for less than market value. I think a market value for this guy at 31 years old is probably around a second-round pick, is what I think. He's very good, but he's missed some games. He's had some injuries. Maybe it would take a little bit more than that. I would shy away from our first-round pick, even though when we win the Super Bowl, it's going to be 32, so it's basically, it's right there on the cusp of the second round. Yeah. But this is a guy that you don't have to – well, obviously, if he's not in there, you have to worry about. But when he's playing, he pretty much just locks down his side of the field. Last year, now, he was penalized the most in his entire career last year, 12 penalties. He also gave up 30 pressures, which was the most that he's given up in 7 years. So it wasn't one of his better seasons, but when he's playing at his peak and as good as he can, like legitimately top 5 left tackle in the league. Like, this guy's got it all. Knowing he's this good, and then watching the Olivier Vernon tape when he went up against Trent Williams, it's a good sign for the Browns, because Vernon absolutely demolished Trent Williams. But from a week in, week out basis, like, this guy is a stud. So I would take a shot at him. If you want to offer him a second round pick for him, absolutely. I would let Kendall Lamb, I would let Greg Robinson and Hubbard battle for that right tackle position and see what happens there. I mean, if we're paying $10 million to Greg Robinson and you got to pay this guy, what was it, $12 million and $11 million?
11 this, 12.5 next.
Okay.
No dead cap, nothing.
That is a bargain, my friend. That's what that is. Now, he wants a new deal. I think that is the biggest thing. And how long are you going to be able to sign Trent Williams for? If you're going to sign him to a 3-year, one of those deals where you can get out of it after 3 years, he's still got 2 years left on his contract, though.
Right.
So if you want to extend him an extra year or two, I could see it. 31 years old or 30 or 31 years old, he's still got 3 or 4 years left in him. Those left tackles typically have a pretty long career.
Yeah, you'd probably just have to put some guaranteed money on it, and you could probably get away with a 3-year deal if you guaranteed some of it. I don't see why not. It could be an option for this offensive line, which, according to some of the OTAs, has been a little iffy. Corbett has been bouncing around from right guard to center. I don't know how much any of this matters. There's no pads on. It's Kyle Kalis was working with the ones at right guard.
Yeah.
What do you know on the OTAs so far, and what the Browns are trying to do there?
Well, I believe I actually didn't write it down, but I think it was the O-line coach that said that was just a matter of what day you were there. Whenever the media was there, that Kyle Kalis was there. They were rotating back and forth every other day. All right, Kalis gets work with the ones, let's say on Tuesday, and then Corbett's the backup center and working with the twos at center, and then you come back Wednesday, Corbett's starting at right guard. So it seemed to be that the coaches were saying like, "Hey, we're just flip flopping. That means nothing right now."
Yeah, they're just getting work in for the various guys, seeing what they can do.
So I wouldn't be. I don't think that's something to worry about. We can worry about it once we get to training camp and I get a chance to get out there and he has pads on if he's getting annihilated. And I see that. I will definitely pass that on. And once we get into preseason games, let's see how he's doing then. The thing that I really want them to do with Corbett this year is just give him a goddamn position and stick with it. Yeah. He bounced around from left tackle to left guard to center. They had him everywhere last year as a rookie, and I think that was a disservice to him. I think that's a disservice to any rookie coming in. The teams have got to set these guys up correctly. Don't put so much on their plate that you make it almost impossible for them to succeed. Help them. Make it easy. Give them one task the first year. If you want to extend him to right guard and center in year 2, that's fine. He's got more time into it. He knows what he's doing at position. But please, and I realize they're from left guard to right guard and center. These might be similar concepts and whatnot. But when you're going from left tackle and now you're left guard and center all in the same year, I think that's a little bit too much for a young guy to handle.
Yeah,
I would like less. Sometimes
he started all his games.
Less is more, is what I was going to say. I'm sorry for talking over you.
In Nevada, he started all his games at left tackle. 4-year starter.
Right.
So,
and nobody projected him. Coming out of the draft to really play tackle. The Browns said, "Hey, we'll give a shot at it because we're so terrible on left tackle." But that's why you can't address your problems in the draft. You really have to, needing a left tackle last year, they needed to go out, sign a guy to play left tackle, and then you can address it in a year or two with that guy you're going to get in the draft. The good teams are not going, okay, we're going to pick up a guy in the second round and force him into a starting spot. That's just not the way it works.
Yeah.
Typically. If he can do it, fantastic. But, the odds are against those players.
That makes sense. Sure. You mentioned the coach. Who are you talking? Oh, Campen.
Yeah.
Oh, he's
Campen.
not on my list. You wanted to touch on some of the other coaches and what they were talking about.
Well, they had the coach interviews.
Yeah.
Yeah, the other day. I don't know. There's a few takeaways. Joe Witt, number one. I believe he's like the DB's coach. This guy, man, I absolutely love this guy. Like, just if you get a chance, go watch his interview. Just very, very impressive guy. Nothing, it wasn't anything like was taken away that he said necessarily. But just watching him give answers and stuff, I was like, okay, this guy seems like he could be a future, a big player or big time coach here in the NFL. But the one thing he did say was he's like, hey, I'm reading where people are saying who the starters are. And he said, I don't know. He was talking about the Whitehead kid, right?
Oh, sure. Yeah.
He was getting a lot of reps in OTAs, and people were like, it looks like Jameer Whitehead is the starter. Meanwhile, he's like, I keep hearing that you guys are saying this. Meanwhile, I don't even know who the starter is, so I'm not sure how you know who the starter is. So he's basically saying, all right, you guys can quit printing this. Like, we're throwing guys out there. We're looking at everybody. We have months away. We have months to go until we get into the season. Please stop writing about this guy's a starter and this and that, because we really have no idea. But like I said, just a very impressive guy. You get a chance, go watch his. Another guy who and this one we'll get into this because the Duke Johnson thing, but Stump Mitchell was talking. He said he really wanted to see Duke show up to the OTAs, and he thinks that gave Dontrell Hilliard an advantage, gave him an opportunity that he might not have had Duke showed up. And he just spoke so highly of Dontrell Hilliard, said that he's doing everything right, doing everything the way we asked him to do. And now Duke has to come in and fit into the scheme that we have and learn the plays and whatnot. And he complimented Duke many times. He talked about what do we do when we're in there watching film with the other players? We use some Le'Veon Bell. We use some Todd Gurley. We use Duke Johnson. He talked highly of him. He's like, Duke's a hell of a player. Yeah. It's like, I just want to see him here. Meanwhile, you got a guy like Dontrell Hilliard who's stepping up, making plays every single day in this OTA. So that's a little bit of foreshadowing here of maybe the Browns' plans are still to trade away Duke. It definitely sounds like that. And maybe we should get in. I don't know if we should get into that now.
Yeah, sure.
The whole
go ahead.
Duke Johnson thing.
Okay,
because Duke comes. So Duke shows up yesterday to the first day of mandatory, and they put him in front of the press, and he says basically, yes, 100%. I still want to be traded. He feels slighted. He feels. They put him on. It's a loyalty issue. You put me on the trade block. Well, how can I still be loyal to you if you don't want me? This stems back all the way from the time that we talked about it. After we picked up Kareem Hunt and John Dorsey gave the interview and said, are we ready to trade Duke Johnson? Not yet.
Yeah. Well,
not exactly yet, or whatever his exact quote was there. And we knew at that time, like, what was that? That was not a smart comment. And that thing has been probably slowly metastasizing, I guess is what you would say, and causing this cancer in the locker room. And then Duke shows up. Now, I'm surprised, and maybe they did this, but I'm surprised somebody didn't pull him off to the side before and have a discussion with him before he was able to get out to the cameras. I'm not sure how that whole thing went down. Maybe they did. Maybe they tried to sit him down. But it's sure, if Duke Johnson is my running back, and I know he's asking for a trade, and we're bringing him into our mandatory minicamp here, I'm bringing him in. And first of all, I'm going to keep him away from the press. Secondly, I'm bringing him in. I'm going to sit him down and tell him how much I absolutely do want him. And that's all nonsense if that's the case. Because Freddie says it was nonsense. He didn't know anything about them trading. It could have been other teams asking about him if he was up on the trading block, and the Browns turned it down. But I don't think that's the case. I think they were actively shopping him. Just a hunch.
Yeah, Mayfield also put it on him too, just saying the train's moving and you're either getting on. He called it self-inflicted wounds.
Yeah.
And then someone said, well, is it going to be awkward? It's not awkward. There's nothing awkward here. Nobody's awkward. He's a professional, and I expect him to do his job. And then they moved on. I was like, wow, he was pretty, for a young quarterback and a young leader, he did not hold back his thoughts on that topic at all.
I think, look, some people had a problem with that because you don't talk business, that kind of stuff. That's what I want out of my quarterback. Yeah. I want him saying, look, we don't talk about that. Like, that's not really, get in here and play. That's all I care about. Let's go play. Let's whatever is happening outside, leave that out on the outside. The one thing I would disagree is where he said it was self-inflicted by Duke, when in fact it was self-inflicted on John Dorsey. It was a mistake by John Dorsey. And I'm not hating on John Dorsey here. Like, I've said it numerous times. I think he's done an excellent job with player acquisition. I think he's doing a great job of building this team. But that was a mistake. That was the one mistake. And if you're going to say that you're going to compliment him on all the good things he's done, it's okay to say where he's made mistakes, and it's been in those press conferences. That's where he needs to tighten up. He needs to be a little bit better. He was almost caught. I felt like he was almost caught off guard. Like he didn't even expect somebody to ask him that question, and they did, and he was ill prepared for it. But at the end of the day, it happened, and Duke, whether it's right or wrong, his feelings were hurt. He felt disrespected, and now the team either needs to make amends with him as soon as possible, needs to sit him down and say, hey, you're in our plans 100%, and talk him into that. Or at this point, when he's out there talking to the media and bringing this up, and if he's going to be any sort of a cancer to the locker room, and I'm not saying he is. I've always said that Duke Johnson is one of my favorite players, and I think he's a very good teammate from everything we've seen. But if it's going to be something that carries over to the team, get him out of there as quickly as possible, because we don't have – we're in a good place right now. We have a lot of players that can produce, and it's not like, we're going to be missing Duke. I like what Duke can give you, but there's ways to replace Duke much easier than if you're replacing a Baker Mayfield or a Odell Beckham Jr. at this point.
Yeah. I'm so pro Duke. I wish nobody would say anything in the media, but I get it if he's, these teams hold no loyalty to anybody, though. So I don't know if he really needs to take it so personal. If the team signs a wide receiver, the other wide receivers go, oh, this could be my job. Like, it's just the business of it. They walk away from players all the time.
But I don't think is it about the signing, though, you think? It's not about the signing of Kareem Hunt.
No, well, obviously it has a lot to do with John Dorsey's comment.
Yeah, I think that's what it's all about, is that, oh, you're looking to trade me? Like, okay. And I think we all know people like this. Like, respect is the most important thing. And I understand it. Like, if you found out your job was trying to get rid of you tomorrow, are you going to be going in giving your job 100%? Right. You're going to be busting your ass for them? Or are you going to be like, okay, well, get rid of me. I guess I'll go somewhere else and do my best there.
Yeah, you could ask Schobert or Kirksey some of the same thing. Like, oh, the Browns, they drafted these two linebackers in the draft, and you're on the last year of your contract. Is that a distraction for you? Things like that, or they could be mad about it. Like, oh, I'm getting older, and now, I have a big contract, and I'm expendable now because they're bringing in these young kids. It's just part of the game, really. Duke has to realize that it's,
it is business.
It is business. If the best case scenario is Duke can go to another team that's a good fit for him, and then he can thrive there, I'm assuming that's a win-win for the Browns and Duke. And I think if they work it out, so it's a win-win, then
I think it's going to be really hard to work out, because Duke, basically, somebody had asked him, is there anything the Browns can do to make you want to stay at this point? And he goes, no, I don't think so. Yeah, there's nothing. Like, he wants out, and not only does it suck that you would have to give up Duke, the trade value goes down, and I'm not sure. We're talking about a third down back. And as much as I like Duke, I've stated that a million times. Like, how much are you giving up for a third down back? Like, there's value in what he can give you. Nobody's, this day and age in the NFL, nobody's giving up a high draft pick for it. I mean, you're talking about, at best case scenario, a fifth round, and that would be it. What are you going to do with that? And that was my issue with it in the first place. Why you never bring it up? You're missing Kareem Hunt for 8 games. Even if you like Dontrell Hilliard, he's unproven to this point. You know what you have with Duke. This is the case of the bird in hand is better than the two in the bush, right?
Right.
Like, this is that. Like, you have it here. Why even mess with a good thing when you know this guy produces? He comes in and works his butt off and plays hard. He doesn't miss games. And you're not going to get anything for him, because he plays the most undervalued. Well, I don't even know if it's undervalued, or the most the one position that just has no value. Yeah. In the NFL.
And his salary this year is reasonable. A team could trade for him, like you said. A fifth is probably maximum. He only gets 1.8 this year. That's guaranteed by the Browns. So if you trade him, you're going to eat a signing bonus. I mean, that's 2.25. That's just going to be dead.
So what's the point of signing him last year?
And also his salary increases in 2020 to 3.6 and 4.6 in 2021. If you trade him away to another team, he's not going to see that 3.6 and 4.6 million.
Well, why wouldn't he see the 3.6 though? Because there's a
possibility, sure.
If you look at comparable players, and I brought this up a couple weeks ago, and I talked about it, that's what they're making. That style of player, the white kid, what's his name? Last name's White from New England, or Giovanni Bernard, or all those guys that are fitting that third down role. Running back are making $3.5 million.
Yeah, per year. Maybe the fifth round isn't too far out of line then.
Yeah. I don't think it is. Expensive. The fifth round is probably the best they could do at this point, especially with teams knowing that he's really forcing the Browns' hand to get rid of him. You have to get when you made those comments. And it's really, and Baker's right, self-inflicted. But like I said, from the team aspect, you've you could have done all this without making any comments and probably got, a little bit better even into the 4th round or something, maybe even the 3rd round if you're really got somebody that doesn't know what they're doing in the NFL that overvalues a running back. But now here we sit, and now you have a player who's not happy, who doesn't want to be here. And what's interesting is Freddie basically said he's under contract, right?
Yeah, which I hate also.
Yeah, so now you're going to, which is, great. Well, you can force him to come here, right? And that's fine. That's fine if you want to do that. My problem would be if he's going to be an issue in the locker room, then and he says he wouldn't. He said he would be a professional if that's the case. But you worry about that because I think we have the talent here to be able to take this thing, into the playoffs deep if we everything goes well. But then Freddie came back and he talked about later in that same press conference where he says, "Oh, it doesn't matter what Duke wants." He said, "I want to win the lottery." Duke doesn't want. He wants to get traded. I want to win the lottery. Sometimes we don't get what we want. And then he talked about, I believe it was McCoy later in that interview where he said, "Look, if a guy doesn't want to be here, we don't want him here."
Yeah.
That was the one time. All right, Freddie. I mean, I buy what you're selling, but you're contradicting yourself here.
Yeah. Wasn't one of my favorite Kitchens interviews by any means, but
you can listen to Kitchens all day, though. I think the guy is.
He's great with the media for sure.
Yeah, I just think he's a pretty sincere guy.
Yeah. Right, we're grasping at straws. We're nitpicking here probably a little bit, but
I probably said that about Hugh Jackson though. So
yeah, so that's
the guy before him, and the guy before him,
yep.
And the guy before that guy, and then the guy before that. So we always love them until they give us a reason not to. And There we go. God damn it! Why would they hire Freddie Kitchens? This guy's a moron. He doesn't even go for it on 4th down and 1 on your own on the other team's 35. Come on, man. This is bullshit. Where's Hugh Jackson when you need him?
All right. So we talked about Baker, his interviews and his thoughts on Duke.
We were still on. Oh, I didn't know if you want to get back to the coaches or you want to talk about Baker and Duke.
No, I guess we're wrapped up there. Hit those other positional coaches.
Yeah, just real quick because, like I said, there's just some interesting guys there. Tosh Lupoi, I believe, is how you pronounce his name. Now, he was made Alabama's defensive coordinator, calling plays last year by Nick Saban, and lost that. I don't know if it was halfway through the season, but he eventually lost it. He was the reason why they felt like they had to promote. Somebody left, and he was such a strong recruiter at Alabama that they felt like, hey, we got to promote this guy or we're going to lose him. So they promoted him, and he really didn't have what it took to necessarily to call all the plays. Some people thought maybe it was a lack of knowledge with the DBs and that sort of thing because he's always worked with the defensive line. Gets promoted, basically takes a demotion, and then at the end of the season says, hey, I'm going to part ways. I'm going to come here, work with Freddie Kitchens. He wanted to make the jump to the NFL anyways. As a defensive line coach, this guy seems to be a really good hire, seems to really know his stuff, and players seem to love this guy. The only thing in the interview I was going to bring up, Tony Grossi said, would you say Myles Garrett is a sort of queen on a chessboard? And Tosh, of course, said, I wouldn't call him a queen. I would never queen. And just sort of joking about it. That was the only real takeaway from the interview, but just to know, you're going to see this guy on the sidelines and, just a little bit of his background of where he comes from. Very interesting stuff. Adam Henry was another one. He had an interview, talked about getting, back with Beckham and Landry. And, he said it's a little awkward. He said it's a little awkward showing up and seeing these same guys that you're with in college and whatnot. We like Adam Henry. I'm glad they brought Adam Henry back. I thought he did a good job, and he seemed to be one of those guys on Hard Knocks that one of the few guys last year that got it. I feel like we have so much of a stronger coaching staff this year.
Agreed. Yep.
Than what we did last year. It felt like a very weak, and that would make sense when you have a weak leader in Hugh Jackson. You get weak coaches around him. Like he doesn't want anybody that's going to fight back, I guess. like, hey, coach, this is kind of stupid. Why are we doing this? He's not, the Freddie Kitchens, when he talked about Duke at least dressing on the days that they had off, or Todd Haley also talking about taking, veteran days off, that sort of thing.
Yeah, that was where we got the "I'm driving the bus" comment that's so famous now.
Yes. Now, there's the one guy, I believe John Lilly, the tight ends coach. This is the one where I came away and I was like, I don't know. I'm still unsure about this guy. He apparently came from Tennessee, not the Titans, but the college. And he said this about David Njoku. You could pull 50 to 60 clips from OTAs that he's doing everything exactly what we asked of him. And then you could pull about the same amount of ones that he could be doing more, doing better. And it's my job to get him consistent there, and that goes for all my guys. But he spoke about Njoku specifically, and here's my thing with it. Like, do you really want to put that out to the public? Do you really want to put that out to the press, that one guy? And maybe you do. Maybe you want to call him out because that's the way you think he's going to get better. But my feeling is when you put this stuff out, it tends to have people judge him harsher. Yeah. Now it was in preseason last year where Njoku dropped like 4 balls in one practice. Do you recall that?
I think so.
And then we went the entire rest of the summer on Twitter where everybody just talked about how David Njoku couldn't catch before that happened. Nobody was saying that. It happened. I mean, there would be people like, hey, he's got to secure the ball better. But once he dropped like 4 balls in practice and they made him hit the jugs machine, it turned into this guy has no hands. He can't catch. He can't do this. And then he goes into the season and it's like a mental thing. He drops balls early. And then after game 8, he ends up like not dropping a ball for the end of the season. But it's you're giving sort of fueling the fire there for people to judge this guy and go on. And to think that the players don't read this stuff is crazy to me at this day and age, right?
Sure. Yeah, they know it's being said.
If you're a player, let's say you're 22, Adam. You're 22 years old. You got done with practice. Do you Google, you're David Njoku, do you Google your name?
I don't know, but I'm sure he hears what they say.
Do you get on your Twitter and people,
it's all over his Twitter probably.
It's all over his Twitter, and people, you know for a fact there's fans in there that are tweeting directly to him about how he needs to step up and work harder on his hands, right?
Bunch of
douchebags, exactly. Yeah. So when he said that, I was like, okay, I get it, because John Dorsey also says, hey, I need David Njoku to become a better blocker, and David Njoku was on a TV program, I can't remember which one it was, shortly after that, and talked about, hey, I heard what he said, and I work on that every day, and I'm going to get better because he said that. So maybe that's their way of motivating David Njoku. Maybe that's their way of saying David Njoku's not getting it. Or maybe it's something that you just don't need to say in this place.
As usual, yeah. Probably less is more again, I think. Callback.
I don't mind it. Maybe it's their way of motivating him. But, it makes me worried that, hey, Njoku's maybe not still getting it. But I tend to believe I saw him catch a long touchdown pass today on the few clips that we get from the minicamp. I just, when I watch him run and I see guys try to guard him, it's like me. If I were to go play like 5th grade football, they put me at tight end and I'm just going to dominate right now. I mean, I'm 38 years old, but I think I could be really good in a 5th grade scenario. And that's what when I see him running and every guy is a foot shorter than him, it seems like, and he's so just unbelievably physically gifted that it's like, man, this guy, how do you stop this? And if he gets it, you don't. If it clicks at some point, you can't stop it.
Yeah.
That's what we're hoping for.
Yeah, he's definitely coming into the 3rd year here. This is going to be a big one for him.
Yeah. So I mentioned Stump Mitchell. Of course, I'll just bring up Al Holcomb. He had an interview also. He was the defensive coordinator last year under Steve Wilkes. I believe he's our linebackers coach now. So you bring in some young guys, you bring in some rookies, and you're going to stick them with Al Holcomb. I think, again, your coaching staff is just so goddamn strong this year. It's unbelievable. I think that's one of the best parts of the build that really John Dorsey's done is helping Freddie make this staff, because when you look at it, I mean, Monken, Steve Wilkes, you got two really good minds there, two really good, guys that have a ton of just Monken with just going back, and I've gotten a chance in the last couple of weeks to go through and watch these Tampa Bay games and just see the things that he's doing and just how wide open he creates. Like, it's not about, and a lot of these things that he's doing, it's not about the receiver's ability. It's about the play design that gets you so goddamn wide open. And then watching the same thing with Wilkes and seeing, like, they were so terrible on offense, but that defense was not that bad for Arizona last year. And they didn't have a ton of talent. He got a lot out of them. And it seems to wherever Wilkes went, he was getting a lot out of it. So a lot out of his team. So those things make me happy. So you bring, like I said, Al Holcomb here, who worked with Wilkes last year, and he knows his stuff. He's a veteran coach, and he's going to take your really young guys here, your young drafted linebackers, and he's going to mold them into good players, I think. Love it.
Good. It's nice to have some experience in there.
Yeah, I mean, would you rather have Al Holcomb, who's been a defensive coordinator, or you're going to have Greg Williams bring in his son?
Exactly. Jesus. Do we have anything else on the Baker interviews?
No, I just think that Baker is a leader. I mean, he's showing that. He kind of brought that up in his interview, is like, hey, it's tough coming in as a rookie and to be a leader. He said, I've been a leader all these other years, and then to come in, like, it's you have to know your place as a rookie. But this year's different for him, and that's why those Duke comments are not meant to be like an attack on Duke. It's more of it's more of letting everybody know we're a team, and I'm going to be the guy that leads you there, and you fall in line. Let's not do things that are self-inflicting. Let's not cause ourselves more issues in the media, and let's just be a little bit more thoughtful about this stuff, and come in and let it all be about football. I thought that was his main message there. But I think that's what we're going to see out of Baker this year. I think we're going to see that leadership really shine. One of the things that not only was he a great quarterback in college, but the leadership ability, and we lack that. We talked about that a number of times a couple years ago. Who the hell is the leaders on this team? Yeah. I think there are it's clearly defined who the leaders are today on offense and defense. We know.
Yeah.
Right? You couldn't say that 2 years ago.
Yeah, too. I think Miles being kind of soft-spoken and during his rookie year, probably trying a little bit of the same, is just figure out what I'm doing before you can get too vocal. I mean, he's not super vocal anyway, but yeah, it's definitely different with Baker over anything that I can remember of how professional he is at 24 years old. Just basically coming in here to his second year. He sounds like he's been out there doing this forever. I mean, he's so comfortable. He's so confident. It's kind of weird to see him. He should stop fucking talking to Colin
but he sort of has.
Though.
Yeah, well, again, I think Baker needs he thrives on that, on people doubting him.
Yeah,
he thrives on.
He loves it.
I think. Yeah, I think he does. And people can get upset about it. The thing that I get most upset is that anytime anybody comments at all, like at this point on Twitter, if I see that you commented on anything that Colin Cowherd said, I'm basically going to block you. Like, I don't want, why you're the one, if you're commenting on it, you're the one that is you're prolonging it. You're keeping it going for no apparent reason. Like, we know he's the Skip Bayless. He's what Skip Bayless was to LeBron James is what Colin Cowherd is to Baker Mayfield. It's like, oh, well, LeBron's just never going to be a great player because you can't win a champ. How long we heard that for? It's like, if you want to sit there and that's what you want to waste your time on, your day, is thinking about what Colin Cowherd thinks about Baker Mayfield, be my guest. But if I'm blocking you if that's the case. I don't want to see it. Like, I'm not putting up with it anymore. We know that it's a farce. It's nonsense. He's saying it because he gets a rise out of people. He's saying it to push his brand, his agenda, so he can get you more clicks and whatnot. Don't fall victim to that. And that goes for, I guess, Baker. But I think the difference between just me sitting here and commenting on that and Baker is that Baker lives on that shit. It's like, I think of it, he doesn't talk as much shit as like a Conor McGregor, but he thrives on that sort of that pressure, that he wants that. He needs that. He wants it to be harder because then there's just so much, it gets him so much more motivated. Like, you go back to that. You see, you remember that Kansas game where those guys were just cheap shotting him, and then, that's the Baker where that's where it went over the line, where he didn't play as well because he was so upset. But they were physically trying to hurt him. But when he's just, you know what I'm saying? Yeah. Like, there's a difference. Like, he was so mad that he couldn't, like, he actually really didn't even play that well during that game. And they were like taking shots at his knees. And this is a guy that was drafted. Like, imagine he tears his ACL and he loses millions of dollars because these guys, 1 in fucking 10 football team is cheap shotting you. Yeah. That's where he lost his cool. But when it comes to this sort of thing and he's just talking trash, they've said it since he's been here. Like, that's what he does. The first day he comes in, we saw it on Hard Knocks, he's talking trash with Greg Williams. That's what he does. That's who he is. If you don't like that, then I'm sorry, but you're going to have a tough time rooting for the Browns because he's going to continue to do it, whether anybody likes it or not.
Yeah, Beckham talked about it in his press conferences. They asked him, when he tweeted after he got traded, he was having some sparring matches about the Giants, and he's like, I want to have fun too. Like, every time that we tweet or every time we say a word, he's trying to say, you guys take it out of context, but he used different words. He was just saying, and then, so that could be part of Baker. He's just having fun on Twitter because that's what it's for, for the most part. I mean, fuck Colin Cowherd. I don't really care what he says. Sometimes I wish Baker would just not address him or not even talk about it. But at the same time, it's Twitter. Like, I don't talk about it either on Twitter.
I don't wish that he wouldn't because, like I said, I think that's what Baker feeds off of. I think he needs that, man. He loves that.
He has fun with it for sure.
The thing with the Odell, Odell was taking heat like that. He's mentally not sound because. Right. Like, that's like, what? And he's right. Like, why can other people comment? And he also brought up, hey, I don't think a lot of the players are in the same situation. Well, he's a superstar.
Right.
So it is different, and you do get treated differently. But quit reading the comments. So it comes down to, like, just be yourself, keep doing you. And you've done something correct to get to this point. Who cares what, don't read the comments. But if that's something that he feeds off of too, then you got to use what you use. You just can't let it, if that's something that's going to make you play worse, if that's something that's going to get in your head, now it's a problem. But this stuff doesn't get into Baker's head. I'm telling you, man, he fucking loves this shit.
Yeah. It's interesting to say the least. Let's touch on that OBJ press conference, 19 minutes long. So I watched the live stream online. It's not
I caught it halfway through on the live stream. I thought I watched the whole thing. I was like, oh, short and sweet. And then you're like, it's 19 minutes. I was like, oh, I only watched 9.
The reason I know it's 19 minutes is because they, at the end of the press conference, then the player just sort of walks off. The mics and the video still run.
Yeah, still hot.
It's hot. So the interns or whatever, the workers or they're all young kids. They go and they start to break down the podium or get it ready for the next person, whatever the case may be. The kid asks, he goes, how long was that? The guy answers, 19 minutes. He goes, I knew we were going over. I knew it. And he goes, yeah, I fucked that up.
Well, what's over?
They were probably trying to keep it to 15 minutes 15? Or something.
Is that what they shoot for? Yeah.
He called out 2 more questions. And then the 2 questions came, and then Grossi just shouted a question real quick that the guy allowed to go through. And then somebody else added another question. So he took like 3 or 4 extra questions. And I thought it was fun. I thought the hot mics at the end were great.
Our buddy Jake Burns, I seen him out. He's been out there all week. It's good to see. The difference between what Jake brings you and what most of these beat writers bring you is just the knowledge of the game. I like to see a little bit more of that. It sucks that we don't get a guy like Pete. Pete Smith needs to be out there. Yeah, I would love to be able to go to one of these things, but we don't get that opportunity yet. Maybe one day that'll happen. But meanwhile, we got Daryl Ryder asking questions, and
yeah, Jake asked him.
It can get a lot better. That's all I know. It can get a lot better if the Browns allow it to.
It was actually a really good press conference. They did not harp on the OTAs that much. There wasn't too many questions about it. Jake had a very early question because I turned it on as soon as the email, as soon as they do live stuff, my email will pop, and then you just click it and watch. And Odell was answering a question about where they line them up and what it would, if you're inside, if you're outside, and Odell and I said, oh my God, for sure Jake asked this question. Yeah. And then Jake had posted it on Twitter, so that I knew he asked it. And it's just hilarious because it was like a football question the second I turned it on.
Well, that's a Todd Monken thing too. That getting a chance to go back and watch this stuff, and I've watched a lot of Giants. Actually, right now I'm week 6 of watching every single game. Okay, I do the 30-minute games so I can get them over quick. But I'm going through. I want to stay in tune, and I've always gone back and watched all the Browns games. I was like, you know what, I'm going to do this year. I'm going to watch them all, every team. But Odell, and Jake brought it up. He was talking about how much he's playing out of slot. That's the Giants. You're going to want to use Odell out of that slot, man. He gets open so fast. There's just so many things that he's going to be able to do there. The question by Jake, I believe, was like the splits, right? I can't remember what it was, but it had something to do with the way that they're splitting the wide receivers. I thought, was that the question?
Yeah. He was saying right, because sometimes you can have them split out wide, sometimes inside, and Odell basically just answered it. It just gives the other team so much more to game plan for. If the more that they can move people around, keeping the splits shorter, widening them out.
What you see Sean McVay do so often. What they're so good at. They're so good at being able to put these guys in position to be wide open. That's what they're doing, and that's what's so hard. It's so hard to gauge, because it's hard to really, you got something like Pro Football Focus, right? They have to grade these guys, and they're grading them on the same scale, but some guys are given easier things to do than other, and I'm sure there's a way that they go and formulate that. And I know recently they have been grading coaches, but they said that will probably never come see the light of day. But they grade them on that sort of thing because some coaches have a knack of just getting receivers wide open. And that is what you will see in a Todd Monken offense. That is what you'll see in a Sean McVay offense or a Kyle Shanahan offense. Freddie, I think, was stuck a little bit with – Freddie did a lot better job of designing plays to beat the defense. But it wasn't as much of what Jake was talking about with those wide receiver splits and that sort of thing and a spread offense or anything like that because we played a lot of 3 tight end sets last year. Yeah. I think this bringing in Monken and matching that with Freddie is a really good pair. I think that is, even if Monken goes somewhere next year, I think it's great for Freddie to take on this knowledge and help him grow as an offensive coordinator or as a play caller.
Yeah.
So I think it's really good. I think we're going to see, and the way that this, our wide receivers, the roster is filling out, I think it's really going to work. If it worked in Tampa with Deshaun Jackson and Mike Evans and Chris Godwin and their tight end, who's slipping my mind, who went before Njoku in that draft, it's going to work with our guys as well.
Yeah, sure.
To me, it's a perfect marriage.
Yeah, there's going to be some fireworks out there offensively for sure, I think.
Yeah, Tampa didn't lose. Tampa wasn't bad because their offense couldn't score. Tampa was bad because their defense was atrocious.
Yeah.
And our defense just looking at it on paper is going to be much better. And they have to prove it. Obviously, the secondary has to play better. But I think we're already a good amount above what that Tampa defense was last year.
Yeah. A couple more things of that OBJ press conference I wanted to touch on before we get out of here. I think he said 3 times or 4 times that the games are in September and will be ready.
Yeah.
And of course the famed, how's everybody going to deal with reduced touches? Always going to hit that.
Yeah. I don't think he's probably going to deal with reduced touches, let's be honest, because if you're going to want to get the ball in somebody's hands, it's going to be his.
Right.
So, yeah. I mean, if he's healthy and he doesn't go for 1,500 yards this year, I'll be shocked.
Yeah, no doubt.
With keeping everybody healthy, the way this offense is looking, I'm expecting Baker to be around 5,000 yards passing this year.
Could be incredible. Yeah, could be off the charts.
And we can talk about lack of touches. People are going to be getting touches. When you have a good offense, there's a thing that you do to get more touches. It's called first downs. You get a lot of them, and then it gives you more touches because you constantly keep the sticks moving. And I think we're going to see a lot of that. Yeah, by the looks of what this offense is going to be.
Yeah, it's always funny when they're worried. Like, I guess touches matter if you're not winning. Then you're like, well, at least I got to make my stats look good so I can get a job after this team. If you're winning and you're going to the playoffs and you're winning your division or you're playing the Super Bowl, I don't think anyone's going to complain if I only had 500 yards.
Yeah, but there's no way like he's going. Okay, so maybe Higgins, or Callaway, they're not getting enough touches or something, but I can't see them being pissed about it. And the thing is, if once somebody goes down, those guys are going to be stepping in and getting a lot of playing time. Like, these are going to be guys that we have to rely on this year. Yeah. There's no way you're going to stay healthy the whole season, everybody. It just doesn't happen in the NFL.
Right. Even Jarvis now is Jarvis Landry. Yep. He's going to be he's not practicing during this 3 stretch. They didn't give a specific injury, but Jarvis said it's no big deal. I'll be fine for training camp. This is precautionary.
Is Grossi pissed off about that because he's missing time?
I mean, no, probably.
Because Grossi was very pissed off about Odell missing the voluntary training camp.
Yeah, him and Joe Thomas had some back and forth on it that was interesting. But Grossi's Grossi. I don't know.
Do you think you strengthen your brand by hating Grossi? Is that what? Like, you just become a fan favorite? If you just call out Grossi, people love you more. That's what I think.
It kind of worked for us. I mean, I think that's where we started. That's what we started year 1 with.
Well, but the reason why we actually started the podcast is because I was so sick of listening to how bad Grossi was. I was like, hey, you know how we just talk about football all the time? You're like, yeah. I'm like, do you want to do a podcast? I can't take it. It's got to be better than what Tony Grossi's putting out every single day. I'm like, we're not watching the same sport sometimes. I hear him say this stuff. Like, what are you? What? Where's this coming from?
Either get this kind of stuff out of the, this non-mandatory stuff out of the process.
But it's perfect. It's good for young guys.
It is.
That's what people are missing out on. It's like Odell already knows what he's doing.
Right.
Like, he knows how to play wide receiver. What's the point? Like, why does he have to be there? This is to bring in the guys, and they have their rookie minicamp. This is to bring in the guys at the bottom of the roster and let them get a shot to show the team what they're made of. Let them get some opportunity. Let Baker throw a ton of balls to what's his name? That's slipping my mind that we drafted last year in like the 5th round. Let Higgins get more opportunity. Let the Seth the Valve get out there and get some opportunity. Let these guys grow. I would almost prefer it. Like, do we want any of our starters there to the voluntary? Yeah. It's like, I want to see Baker there, obviously, as a young guy in a new offense, but he's got a lot more to learn. Odell, they just go, all right, you're running this route.
Yeah.
That's pretty simple. That's simple stuff. Now Baker's got a much more difficult job here.
Yeah, I'm not exactly.
And Tom Brady doesn't even show up to these goddamn things. Now, Tom Brady's been in the league for 20 years. So that's why I prefer Baker show up at this point.
Yeah. He's still learning the craft, and he doesn't have all the Super Bowl rings that he's carrying around either.
Well, soon.
Yeah, soon. All right. Anything else before we wrap this up?
No.
Awesome.
I got nothing.
Cool. Podcast review. Greatest show on earth. 5 stars from our boy Mike Skinner.
Mikey.
What's up, Mike? I have heard that this show has been linked to curing cancer and Brown's emotional wounds.
That is actually true. That is true.
One warning, this is only a must-listen for intelligent Browns fans. The rest of you can go listen to Mary Kay. Mike throwing out some heaters out there.
That at least cuts off half the fan base. So.
All right, so ego's boosted. Now we can go. What's our Twitter?
Yeah. At STS Podcast, and our email is
survivingtheseason@gmail.com. Patreon.com/STS Podcast. If you want to support the show financially, we thank all of you out there that help us on Patreon. Thank you so much. #Road to Redemption. Greg, tell them what we say.
Keep on surviving.